Flight 217 was scheduled as a standard 6-hour overnight trip, but halfway through the flight, the world outside the windows simply ceased to exist. The cabin atmosphere began as a picture of routine security. The interior lights were dimmed, most of the passengers were asleep, and the engines droned steadily. An intense physical anomaly began to manifest as a suffocating pressure. A heavy sensation settled over the aircraft, as if something of immense scale was pressing directly against the fuselage from the outside. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the engines stopped. They did not fail or lose power gradually. They simply ceased to function, plunging the cabin into silence while the aircraft continued to move forward through the dark. The crew's reaction ignored every standard safety protocol. A flight attendant walked calmly down the aisle, offering a pleasant, fixed smile as she whispered a single instruction to the waking passengers: "Please keep your window shades closed." The rules of aviation and terrestrial physics have been quietly abandoned. The passengers are now trapped inside a moving metal tube, completely vulnerable to an unknown force operating outside the aircraft. Panic took hold near the center of the cabin. An old man sat sweating heavily, his hands shaking as he leaned over to offer a desperate warning. They could not let the entities outside see them looking. The instruction was short-lived. Near the back of the cabin, a terrified passenger reached for the plastic tab and threw open their window shade. The window revealed a landscape stripped of clouds, stars, or the moon. In their place sat an infinite, crushing black void. Tiny clusters of light moved slowly through the darkness far below the plane. At this distance, they appeared almost like bioluminescent cities at the bottom of a deep ocean. Then, one of those distant lights shifted. A gigantic, glowing eye opened beneath the plane, rolling its massive iris to gaze directly upward. Looking into the void invited the entities to look back. By alerting the observers to their presence, the passengers turned Flight 217 into visible prey. The aircraft tilted violently sideways as oxygen masks deployed from the ceiling. Long, agonizing scratching sounds echoed through the cabin as massive claws began scraping across the exterior metal. Impossibly tall, thin figures with pale gray skin and completely black eyes appeared outside the windows, pressing their faces against the glass to watch the passengers inside. The emergency exit near the wing suddenly unlocked itself. A violent decompression ripped through the cabin, dragging luggage and freezing air out into the blackness. A flight attendant appeared, floating outside that open door. She maintained a wide, unnatural smile as the wind peeled her skin away like torn paper. Every window shade in the cabin flew open simultaneously. In that instant, every passenger who looked out vanished from their seat, leaving behind only deep, wet handprints on the glass. The physical structure of the airplane provides no protection. The entities have breached the cabin, harvesting human beings through the simple act of observation. Total electrical failure plunged the cabin into darkness. Moments later, tiny luminescent lights began to drift peacefully through the air above the passengers' heads. As the lights drifted closer, they revealed themselves to be hundreds of disembodied human eyes, still blinking as they maneuvered to watch the survivors. The aircraft's architecture began to distort. The metal ceiling bulged downward as human faces pressed through the panels from the inside, some screaming silently, others smiling, as they were absorbed into the plane itself. The seatbelt signs illuminated with a sharp chime. The belts tightened autonomously, pulling with enough force to cut into the ribs of the remaining passengers. The aircraft has transitioned into a digestive containment unit, physically restraining its cargo to ensure they remain in place for the final delivery. An unimaginably large circular structure appeared in the darkness below. At a distance, it resembled a massive eye, until the entire formation blinked sideways. The structure is a colossal mouth, lined with endless rows of teeth that stretch for miles into the surrounding void. Flight 217 is part of a much larger descent. Thousands of other aircraft, old propeller planes and modern jets alike, are falling silently into the maw alongside them. The intercom crackled one final time with a message from the dark cockpit. A distorted, joyful voice welcomed the passengers to their final approach, promising them an eternity within the entity. The sky functions as a managed hunting ground. Certain flights are systematically diverted from their paths and funneled into the feeding route to satisfy an ancient cosmic horror.